So, you want your own piece of the American dream, a little slice of this wonderful continent we call the Americas, and maybe a piece of the American dream with your own land to do whatever you want with, right? Well, I've done it. I've done it without a bank, and I can help you do the same. Now, I personally am very well versed with real estate. I'm very comfortable with doing deals without realtors, with doing my own marketing, with negotiating and structuring things in a way that might not be as traditional. If you're not that way, then there are other routes to get to the same destination. But the thing that's really important to know and understand is that it's easier than you might believe, especially because land is hard to finance. And what does that mean? That means there's opportunity for people like you and me. Banks are much, much less likely to finance property that doesn't have a house on it. It's harder for them to sell that type of property, and they tend to be more remote and less in demand. For that reason, there's a gap in the market that we can take advantage of, and we can do that through seller financing. I'll keep this really brief right now. There'll be other videos to get into a lot more details on what that means, but seller financing is basically when the owner of the property acts like the bank and they take payments instead of getting a bank involved. That's how I bought my second property, and I'll teach you guys exactly how to go about it for yourselves. Now, if that's something you're interested in, frankly, you can start just by working with a real estate agent. Now, I would not go out and find a traditional agent. How I personally would find an agent is by going to one of those third-party sites like Zillow or Redfin, looking up land for sale in the area that you're interested in buying, and seeing the people that have them listed for sale. If a broker or a real estate agent has land listed for sale in the area that you're considering buying, there's a very good chance that they're well versed in it and can help you find land, or maybe even just buy one of their listings if it's a good fit for you. Working with an agent does not mean that you have to use a bank or anything like that. An agent can propose an offer to the seller that is for seller financing, and frankly, maybe a third of the time those vacant land listings have seller financing terms available because those sellers understand what I'm speaking about here, which is it can be hard to get financing. So if you're kind of more just looking for something for yourself, not really interested in making this a side project or being super hands-on, I'd recommend doing that. Go to Zillow, go to Redfin, find agents 1, 2, 3 that are very active in the area you want to buy, contact them and let them know what you're looking for and let them represent you to find a piece of land. The other way you can do it, if you want to be a little bit more hands-on, maybe find a better deal or just the perfect fit with a little bit more effort, is you can do things like I do, which is direct mail. Now that's a whole different ballgame. I may or may not make another video about that, and if that's something you're really interested in, be sure to comment, because I'm not going to make a video if you guys aren't going to be interested in that kind of content. But what I do is I send letters to landowners letting them know I'm interested in buying their land. Sometimes I can get a great deal, sometimes I can buy land that's otherwise not on the market, and that's another really great way to find your own piece of land. But again, regardless of the method that you find it, whether it's with a real estate agent on the MLS, whether it's with direct mail, or even just going to a website like mine. I have a side business that's albuyers.com. I buy and sell land. It's a way that I make a little bit of capital for myself to do development projects with. It's also a way that I'm learning land even better by creating a skill set of understanding the valuation, the pitfalls, and making a little bit of fee income by buying and selling land right now mostly in Arizona and Texas. I've been looking in Washington, but it's a lot more expensive up here, and it's just not been quite as fast to get deals under contract than it is in those other states. So I personally wholesale land. If you want to even go to my website, check it out, but usually it sells pretty quick, so I think we only have like 2 lots for sale right now. But again, that's my business. That's how I've learned this. That's how I like to spend my time, and that's a skill set I'm trying to develop. If you are just simply looking for your own piece of land, you can buy from a guy like me. One option. You can contact a realtor and either buy with a loan or making offers with seller financing, or you can do direct mail yourself to try to find those landowners and be very, very proactive, which takes obviously the most amount of time. It takes a decent amount of money depending on how many properties you're going to be mailing to, and there's a chance that they're just not even interested depending on how big the letter, or I should say, depending on how big the group that you're looking to send to is. Now, the other thing about seller financing, and one thing I always try to find, is how to make things truly a win-win deal. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, it's a win-win. So let me use a real life example. So my very first acreage property is 20 acres out in the Derby Canyon, where you see me do all those videos at my cabin and all that. That cabin sits on 20 acres. It's basically on the side of the mountain. That's a really awesome property, and that cabin is my kind of headquarters out there. But I also bought the lot below me, and that was not 100% intentional, but ended up being a win-win for everyone involved. So let me tell that quick story. So our cabin required crossing private property to access it. We did not, or the prior owners did not have an easement. They just had a gentleman's handshake with the prior owner where he allows them to access that property by driving across his land. Now, that's something that I would be a fool to not have some form of written or legal access to that property via that particular route. And so when I was doing my due diligence on that 20-acre property that we ended up buying, I got in touch with that owner and I asked him, would you be okay with doing an easement? I'd be happy to pay you whatever a fair market dollar amount would be, but an easement is a legal path that's recorded that allows us to access our land. And at first he thought that sounded like a good idea, and the more that he kind of thought about it and it sounded like maybe he talked to some friends and family, he decided, well, it sounds like that might hurt the value of my land, so I'm not so sure I'm interested in doing that, but I'll sell you my land. And I said to him, I'd love to buy that land, but I don't have the capital for it because we just bought that 20 acres for a pretty handsome price tag up above you. So I said, if you would like to sell it to me, we could do it where I make you payments every month and even pay you a little bit of interest. And he said, let's talk about that. And fast forward the whole conversation, that's what we ended up doing. So I made a small down payment for him. I pay a very reasonable amount every month. It's about $500 a month, and I think that was a 5-year note, although I'd have to double check to be 100% sure on that. And I think we got a very fair price. Now, I'm not trying to steal it from him or anything like that, but I definitely think that if we went to resell it, we could get a better deal or even more than what we paid for it. But that was a win-win for me and him because he was able to create income from land that was doing nothing for him, and he owns a whole lot of acreage out there, so he didn't really mind giving that little corner up. It also allows him to earn interest, so he's actually going to make more than the total sales price at the end of it, where I'm able to make payments where a bank probably wouldn't have given me a loan for that vacant land with zero improvements up in the mountains. I'm paying him interest, but it's less than the market interest, so even if I did get a bank loan, I'm still paying less in interest for that, and the terms were favorable as far as the down payment percentage and all that. So long story short, the seller wins because they made some money, they've got some passive income, and they're collecting interest. I win because I'm getting a good deal on the land. I'm paying an amount that works for me and having terms that him and I were able to work out where a bank would have probably required a larger down payment and a higher interest rate. So that's the kind of thing that if you're creative and you're persistent, you can create win-win deals. And those are the methods that I recommend to buy your own property. Now, as you guys probably know, unless you're brand new to my channel, the other point of buying this land is being able to rent it out. So buying on seller financing with a relatively low monthly payment, what I'm actually planning on doing is developing that lower lot into 3 different campsites, which I'm hoping will allow me to cover almost the entire cost on an annual basis. This is actually kind of the first step in my business plan of creating bigger self-sustaining communities where I'm treating this property as kind of a proof of concept. So my goal last year was the first year I owned it and rented it out. We just had vacant land that people came and just camped out for the night, paid $30, had a lot of acreage and privacy and a guarantee that they weren't trespassing or going to run into issues with authorities. And I'm getting a little bit of passive income by doing that. Now this year, in the next month or so, when the weather gets good enough to bring all my truck and tools and everything back up and start the construction season again, I'm planning on developing 3 different campsites. One will be for tents, one will be a camper that we already bought and will be basically fixing up a little bit and renting out as a turnkey little 1-bedroom camper rental, and the third will be maybe a mixture. We're either going to just do a tent site or we might get like a trailer and do a higher priced rental that way. And my goal is to offset our annual cost of the land through just that rental income. And then the next time that we do this, the goal is to buy a property big enough where we will do some campsite rentals like that and then build permitted structures that we're doing more formal, like Airbnb style rentals. And then the third phase will be to build a bigger structure that's more for like a wedding venue, but that's for future projects on much bigger land with year-round access. The point of this video is that it's much more attainable to be able to buy your own land than it might feel like. And if you connect with someone like me as an investor that might be able to look out for you and find a piece of land that works for you and sell it to you either for cash or even with financing in place, or by contacting a real estate agent and getting a list of properties that might accept seller financing that work for your budget in your area, or third, by kind of treating this into a hands-on venture where you're doing direct mail to landowners. Those are all different ways that people like myself buy land and can get good deals, but also have financing without having a bank. So this is kind of a intro short video. I hope that at least gets your mind turning and the wheels running on what the possibilities are. And keep in mind, I live in Washington State. Our land is relatively expensive here. It's hard to find anything for less than 6 figures that has significant acreage. But depending where you live, it can be a lot cheaper. I buy land in Arizona. I have land under contract for $2,500. It's 5 acres right this minute. You can definitely find stuff that you could either buy for cash or get something bigger and nicer that has seller financing or even potentially bank financing if you find a lender who's willing to do that. So if you have specific questions, please be sure to comment, because I'm not exactly sure what the best things for me to speak on or the benefits would be for you on a video like this. But I'd love to hear from you guys, especially those of you who already own land. Love to hear about your projects, how you got into it, what you're doing with it, and ways that we might be able to help provide more valuable content through these videos, whether that's learning how to do direct mail, whether that's understanding what exactly is seller financing, help I get it at a basic level, but help me understand the details. And those are all videos that I'll be working on and coming out with in future months. So be sure to, of course, as always, subscribe, like the video, and comment so that I can do future videos that are very relevant to you and what you're looking for. Continue to make the business playlists within our Living on the Land channel relevant and helpful so that we can all become more self-sustaining by owning our own land and developing it in different ways that we see fit.
My mission is self-reliance through sustainable living, and we're here to build a community. Click here to subscribe to be sure to get more awesome content for living off the land. And be sure to go in to enter for notifications. Click that bell, get notifications, and stay in tune. Subscribe, watch, and comment. Let's build a community. See you soon.